Let's bring in Eddie Steele now from Sports 1440. He's always got the hot takes, as I said. Eddie, you're still looking fresh. What's your hot take today, man? What do you got for me?
My hot take today is I'm using my iPad here in the car because it's new and, like to think better technology. So I don't know if that's a good thing or not, because then it's a bigger screen, so more of my ugly face in the screen. So I don't know if it's a plus or a minus.
I was actually going to say you still look thin, man. It's a very flattering angle. So, Eddie, you're good with me. You're always good with me. I'll tell you this. You had a comment on our guy, Coach Phil, this week. He said, Simone Lawrence is his number one player on the board for free agency. You said, interesting. And like 2 days later, Simone retires. What's your take on Simone, his career? Should he be in the Hall of Fame, and just overall free agency this week in the CFL?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Simone, hell of a career. What he's done out in Hamilton, 11 seasons with one organization, that's challenging enough in itself to do in the CFL, but then to have the success that he's had over the years, the All-Stars. We actually, this morning, we're interviewing Milt Steele on Sports 1440 out here in Edmonton. And Milt said a pretty funny line that he was talking with Simone, and he said, welcome to the club of being a Hall of Famer that hasn't won a Grey Cup, which is true. Simone's never won that Grey Cup, but I think he will be a Hall of Famer, all-time tackle leader in Ticats history. On the field, he's done everything that you could do as a player. Now let's take it off the field, where he's even been more impactful in the community, in the locker room. And that's the reason why, and you don't see this often, a guy retire and instantly go into a job with the organization that he played with. That just goes to show you what the organization thought of him, and just how high they thought of this man as an individual, and the impact that he can still have off of the field within that Hamilton community. And, I guess he's just going to be off of the free agency boards at this point now.
There you go. I want to ask you this. You are from Winnipeg, but you played in Hamilton, Sask, and Edmonton. And for your own reasons, you settled in Edmonton, and you're the Eskimo guy. Elk guy. And I just found out this week that if this was a privately owned team, they would have folded by now. Thank God they're community-owned team. They weren't going to let the team go down. And this is a year that Chris Jones has to make the playoffs, or he gone. What's your take as we sit here on February 16th on the Edmonton Elks and where they're at as a franchise and a team?
Well, as a franchise, we know where they're at. They're struggling. They're trying to mend things between themselves, their fan base. Yeah, again, I've said this many times, and I'll continue to say it. The only way to mend things truly is to win games. And this is a season where Chris Jones has to win games. You can't just have a record where it's even 500, where it's, we're slowly showing signs of improvement. No, this is year 3 of the regime, so it's time to really show up, especially considering how the first few years have gone. But they're in a good place. Roster-wise, they've been better than they have been the past couple of years. As much flack as the organization has got from some people because they signed McLeod Bethel Thompson, they're in a better place because of that roster move. They have a solid, solidified passing quarterback, which you need in this league as their number one option, a guy who the last time he was in the league led the league in passing. They brought over one of his best, most favorited targets from Toronto the last time he played in the CFL. So that's a good move. And he's a Canadian, so that always helps. They brought in the best returner in the CFL from last year. That helps in an area where the Elks have been absolutely desperate. In all honesty, they've had one return since I last played with them. They've had one return touchdown, I should say, since I last played with them, dating back to 2015. So, they've addressed areas of concern, and I think they overall have a good roster, and they haven't made too many moves. They've got rid of Jake Serezna, and let AC go via free agency. So that's two big key pieces on the D-line. But Chris Jones, I was chatting with him over the weekend a couple weekends ago, and he said that he has high hopes for some young guys that he's bringing into camp. So it's going to be exciting. Overall, they're in a better place team-wise than they've ever been. At the end of the day, man, it all comes down to winning and putting up dubs on the board.
I tell you something, man. I appreciate Eddie. I could go on a couple hours with you. I always like talking with you. To say that Jones will be gone if they don't make the playoffs, he knows that. Not saying anything he doesn't know. You can always tell, right? You can hear those footsteps over your shoulder. And I want your take on Trey Ford. You just said it. Everybody's upset that McLeod Bethel-Thompson was brought in. When are fans going to realize you haven't earned anything? Chris Jones won their last championship, brother. You were there in 2015, and nobody gives a rat's ass. Make the playoffs or you're gone. Same thing with Trey Ford. Why are people so upset? You haven't earned anything, guy.
Yeah, Al Davis, baby. Just win. Just win, baby. And that's what it comes down to. And look, Rod, I get the Trey Ford. I do get it, because you have to look at it from this angle, too. Sure, Trey's unpolished, and he's only won a handful of games, but that handful of games that he won pulled this team out of the pits of despair, pulled this team out of the longest losing streak in North American pro sports history at home. Like, what he did was the only glimpses of brightness and flash for this offense last year. So you can't ignore that either at the same time. You can't, because he showed some brilliance. He showed some tendencies and areas where there needs to be some growth. I think everybody knows that. But he showed flashes of why he is such a special athlete and that he potentially could be capable of being a face of a franchise.
Okay, I get it, but you and I have accomplished a lot of things in our life too, and guess who cares?
Flashes. Hey, I said flashes, man. That's why Macbeth is here.
Okay.
Though.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, this Trevor from Red Deer has written in, and you and I are the guys that are on the air right now, so we're going to have to try and answer it for him. Trevor from Red Deer says, Happy Football Friday. What's going on with the Stampeders quarterback picture? Great show as always. Have an amazing weekend, my friend. Neither you or I will ever be confused as the Stamps guys, but we're here, so we're going to try and answer this. I don't think they're settled on who they have. Clearly, they're not. You know, Jake Muir will be the guy at the top of the depth chart, but I would say it's pretty wide open going into the year in Calgary. What do you think?
Likewise, I agree. And at this point, it's Jake's job to lose. I don't see someone in the stall there who's going to come out and really take his job unless he doesn't perform well in training camp. So this whole Stamps team is a mystery because it's unusual from what we're accustomed to seeing. We're accustomed to seeing just the same old, they're rolling out pretty much the same type of crew. There are not a lot of turnovers within the roster. And it's the same old, same as usual. And it's not the case this year. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of turnover. And we're at a point now where we can't really look at the Stamps and say that they're a guaranteed 10 to 12 win team anymore. You can't. There's some uncertainty, and with how the league is looking now and how the league has played out the past couple of years, you quite honestly never know what's going to go on in the West, and I don't think the Stamps are going to rise in the standings, put it that way.
Well, and now Huff's out of the picture. Like, I almost wonder. Jeff, the Stamps fan, writes in, he says, Dave Dickinson said in no uncertain terms last week, Jake is our starter. Well, that's cool, but bigger picture, what Eddie's saying, my cousin Jeff just wrote me from Calgary. His dad, my uncle, coached the Stampeders 100 years ago, and he just said, are the Stamps going to be better this year? Like, the mood in Calgary is they got a ways to go to get where they were. And I just wonder if they're climbing up the mountain or if they're sliding down. I guess we'll find out. As you say, do your talking on the field, and wins will solve it all. Well, are you saying if Edmonton wins enough this year, they'll be right back where they were? Stadium will be 30,000 plus? Is that all it'll take?
No, it takes time, but you win and people will come. Edmonton's a pretty loyal market. We obviously know that with the Oilers, and I see it with the Elks too, and I hear about it with the Elks. But at the end of the day, people are tired of going and seeing a product that is not putting up wins. This is a game where people pay to be entertained, but to go with entertainment, they pay to see wins. And they haven't been seeing wins. And you see wins, you get playoff games, you become a contender. Yes, Edmonton definitely can come back to the rich tradition and history that we've been accustomed to.
But like you say, it takes work. Eddie, thanks for fitting us in. You always bring the goods. Have a great weekend, brother.
All righty, Rod. Take care, man. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the weather.
Thank you, pal. The great Eddie Steele checking in from the City of Champions.